Ornok was glad his friend did not press him for further details about his tumultuous time living on Tuxie. Walking down the hallway of the motel, he kept a vigilant eye and nose out for anything that seemed unduly suspicious, aided by the fact that he knew what to look for thanks to his unpleasant past. It had been a hassle getting everything ready for that exodus off-world. He knew there was, without a shadow of a doubt, that there were still certain individuals that wanted his tail served up in a golden smorgasbord, especially after he pushed so many of the top off the ladder to escape, giving many names and locations to their version of planetary enforcement. Banishing the ugly thought with a shudder that reached down to the tip of his tail, he meandered around the whole of the motel, finding nothing of actual note. Sure, he saw some people taking illicit substances when they thought no one was looking, and even a young mixed-species same-gender couple being particularly adventurous in the pool. Nothing really to worry about, and honestly, he hoped no one of import would notice what could be construed as unsavory behavior. Everyone needed a fun time once in a while. Finding himself in the attached bar and games parlor of the motel, he paid for a billiards table, haggling with the bartender for a lower rate, since he wanted to use it for a few hours instead of just a few games. Setting a stack of physical credits at the end of the table to signify a challenge, he began to play against himself. The table itself was quite large, and he used a transparent aluminium billiards ball to hit against the other 17, placed in a triangular pattern. Oddly enough, triangles were used in all species billiards, except for typos who used an irregular rhombus, though the rules and number of balls varied greatly between all known species of the Galactic Alliance. It was a while, at least 2 games against himself, until someone approached him. A Yomdera woman, wearing worn, cut-off denim-esque shorts, a loose-fitting black tank top, and a vibrantly loud maroon jacket that was tied around her waist by its long sleeves, had approached his claimed table. An assortment of rings, bangles, ear piercings, and body studs adorned her form. Some of them even held precious-looking or synthetic gemstones of varying colors and cuts. "You look like you'd be a challenge," the woman said silkily. Dark and polarized glasses covering her eyes prevented any kind of true eye-to-eye contact. The morning summer sun was quite bright, streaming in from the grand skylight and giving everything a blue hue. The climate control of the coastal getaway was top-notch and kept everything at a cool temperature, despite all the bright light being let into the building. "I'd like to think I'm no amateur," Ornok replied, looking the woman over. He had to admit, she was quite cute for a Yomdera. He continued, "Care for a game or two? Your choice." "Ooh, that's tempting, all right," she said, a hand on her hip as she leaned on the billiards table a bit. She was leaning in such a way that her loose tank top let him see straight down, showing off her small and exceptionally perky assets, as well as the fact that she was not wearing a bra, nor other supportive clothing for her species. Then she said, "I think I'll take you up on that. What's the opt-in? 40 credits? "That's too much for my liking. I'm not made of currency," Ornok replied with a bit of a chuckle, already sensing that she was trying to hustle him as well. "How about 20? I'm just trying to play for a good time, maybe win enough out of you for a full tank of fuel." He gave her his best fetching smile equivalent, laying on what little charm he had rather thickly. "Oh, then let's play," she said with a smirk of her own, putting her own stack of physical credits next to his own. The two of them ended up playing for some time, using a common, if challenging, Gwepti rule set. After determining which orientation to score points, they had to declare which billiard went into which pocket by hitting it with at least one ricochet from another billiard. While they played and made bets, neither one really making more money over the other, they talked casually. 4 games in, and only increasing his currency by a little under half, Ornok could not notice that he suddenly let down his guard as they played. He was having a grand time of things, and if he angled the situation right, he would be able to have an even better night with the woman he was playing against. It had been some time since he had let loose. The last time had been with Gerd, after she took it upon herself to get him to unwind, after a stressful week at work during a special promotion, as well as an offer to call her whenever he wanted to use her to unwind and de-stress, as she had loved his dominance over her in that regard. "You're good," the Omdera woman said. "I didn't think you'd make that call." "Well, Vexler," Ornok said with a shit-eating grin, "I didn't think I'd make that either. I got lucky, plain and simple." "I can see that," Vexler said with a laugh, looking at the table, trying to see how she would approach the unfavorable situation she found herself in. "Starball in the left pocket, hit by the solid gold. 2? No. 3 credit says I make it." "Go for it. That's a tricky one," Ornok replied with a calculating eye, looking at the shot. It was possible. Vexler used her billiard stick to try and measure out angles before committing to anything. As she did so, whether it was intentional or not, she gave Ornok quite the thorough view of herself, more so than the other times she had used her stick to measure out angles. Settling on 1, Vexler hit the billiard and, as she declared, made the shot. Barely. "Woo!" the Omdera woman shouted, raising her fist in the air in celebration. "Take that and pay up." All right, Ornok replied, moving credits from his stack to hers. "That was a good shot." "You bet your tail that was," she said, using a unique native word that had to be translated into Galactic Alliance Standard by his translator. With a grin, Ornok went to make his shot, declaring, "Double ricochet off your billiard. 5 credits says I make it." "That's a big gamble," Vexler said. "Think you can make that?" "I'm certain, with a little bit of good fortune." He really was laying his charm on thick. As he angled up his shot, actually putting forth his full effort, instead of just merely looking the part and fucking around with his shots. He did not see Vexler move around next to him. He did not see her remove something from under her jacket. He did feel the unmistakable press of a pulse pistol jammed in the sweet spot between his back lower ribs, right where his liver was exposed and unprotected by bone. "You're cute. Cuter than I expected for a lizard," Vexler said. "So I don't want to pull the trigger. Now, you're going to be a good boy and keep playing with me." "I knew this was too good to be true," Ornok said with a deep and heavy sigh. "I can't believe you got me to lower my guard." "That took far longer than I wanted it to." "So what are you after?" "Just for you to stay out of our way." "You want the mark on Selena?" Ornok stated simply, then said, "If you don't mind, I'd like to make my shot." "Go for it," Vexler said, adjusting her position around him a bit, but keeping the weapon pressed up against him. "You're more astute than I." While it had been many Galactic Standard cycles since Ornok had been in a similar situation, old memories took hold, though perhaps slower than anticipated due to disuse. As Vexler moved, he took his calculated risk, snapping the billiard stick hard into her gut, and using his tail to pull her foot out from under her. While not as strong as he used to be due to being upper middle-aged, he was more than a match for the fit and young Omdera, especially with the aid of surprise. As she fell, he used his skull to bash her across the head, cracking her far too durable polarized glasses. Pushing through the stars he was now seeing, Ornok ran towards the hallway, putting needed distance between him and Vexler. With a grunt, Vexler endured the metaphorical sucker punch of the billiard stick to her stomach. Before she could even reflexively pull the trigger of her pulse pistol, her aim had been spoiled by Ornok's tail pulling her off her feet, less than a split second later, causing the shots to go wide and hit the opposite wall. The headbutt to her face had not been expected, neither was the sheer ferocity of it. She was sure to have 2 black eyes, even though only one of the lenses of her snug and durable smart glasses were cracked. Beings were screaming and running out of the game parlor, as Vexler held the spot on her side that was fast becoming quite the angry and painful bruise. Thumbing one of her ear piercings to activate the hidden communication device, she spoke through pained breaths. "We have a problem." "Dial Nuo!" Ornok shouted to his smartwatch as he ran, feeling it vibrate 3 times in quick succession to acknowledge that it actually understood the command for once. Hello? Nuo, wake up Selena and get your weapons. Just kidding, this is his voicemail. Leave a message if it's important after the beep. That fucking hatchling! Ornok roared out as loud as he could, ignoring further prompts for his smartwatch, running to the room Selena had booked. Slowing down while trying to fish out the room key in his pocket, Ornok had to quickly pump his legs backwards in an effort to suddenly decelerate as he could not believe what he was seeing. The room door exploded outwards, flinging an oddly shiny bipedal form through it with a horrendous crash. The room was filled with a thick, black smoke that was clearing out from the now open door. A small shape could be seen through the thinning, noxious black fumes, and a bright red light shone through the haze. A peculiar electrical hum could be heard over the lights of the hotel. Covering his nose and feeling his eyes water, even from the middle of the hall, Ornok saw the bipedal form shrug off the damage, as though it were nothing. Through his rapidly blowing vision, he recognized the metallic body for what it was, just as the Yondera woman caught up to him. Firing pulse shots as she ran, her usually sharp aim spoiled by the pot shot of the billiard stick, and the damage done to her smart glasses. "I'm not done with you!" Selena shouted, her voice icy and laden with malice. Sprinting into the hall at speeds no normal human could ever hope to match, she was upon the armored robot in seconds, raining down hammering blows that were being parried just as quickly. "I am not rated for this kind of prolonged combat," the machine stated loudly to Vexler, his voice using some kind of basic default setting, making it sound quite inorganic, robotic and mechanical. "I recommend full regroup and retreat." Now that Ornok was no longer concerned with warning his friends about the imminent threat to them, he turned to face Vexler, pulling out his own pulse pistol and firing in rapid succession. His aim was just as terrible. While he had not been running, nor was he hurt, the putrid smoke from the hotel room, while thinning quickly, burned his eyes, forcing them to tear up badly. However, his shots were focused at disabling rather than outright killing. The lack of pain shouts from the Yondera told him he missed his mark. "I agree," Vexler shouted to the slowly retreating machine from where she was hiding behind the corner, trying to provide covering fire to no avail. "Where's Leonard?" she shouted back again. It was at this point that Nuo managed to jog up to Ornok, pressing a Class 2 Omnihazard filtration mask, one specifically designed for Dioshines, into his hands. "Pays to be prepared." Nuo's voice was a little distorted by the one he was wearing. As Ornok put on the breathing mask, having trouble in his haste to do so, a near-splitting explosion thundered through the hallway, the confined space making it far louder than usual. A split second later, a golden barrier shattered around Nuo's back, and the aqueous stench of burnt and far overworked electrical components accompanied it. All Nuo could do was growl in pain, as his Class 2 personal shield emitter fried from overloading, burning through the self-tightening elastic binding band and scales with equal ease. He was left with a rather annoying and painful superficial burn on his upper arm. "Providing covering fire," the machine replied, as it was pushed back by the unrelenting hail of blows from Selena, their metal fists making a hard and grating ping with each hit. "Find cover, you two!" Selena bellowed out. "That's a Terran weapon!" The two Dioshines did not need to be told twice, and ran for the only cover that could be found. Right towards where Vexler was. The autonomous machine reacted even faster, disengaging from hand-to-hand combat with Selena, and with an unnatural twisting leap, ran to the corner and grabbed Vexler. Without regard to the woman's injuries, it put her over its shoulder and bolted. Selena, Ornok and Nuo rounded the corner just in time to avoid another hit with a high-powered Terran slug thrower. "I'm going after the drone. You two get that gunner," Selena said to her two bodyguards, bolting off after the machine at a breakneck pace. "Right!" Ornok shouted after Selena's retreating form. "So much for that easy payout," Nuo said to no one in particular. Then he turned serious. "I'm down a shield band. How do you want to play this?" "I'll cover you while you get in close. You're better at claw to claw, and I'm a better shot." "Right," Nuo said in simple acceptance. "Rip and tear?" "Rip and tear." Selena ran after the machine through the small hallway of the hotel. Most people had already run away or had locked themselves in their rooms once they heard pulse pistol fire and gunshots. She still had to be a little careful, as Wexler, despite being carried like a sack of potatoes, still fired at her. She did not want to find out how high the yield was firsthand. Despite hearing gunshots in the background, Selena had belief that her two friends could handle themselves. There was no point in worrying about it right now. Though she still had her combat knife and gauze pistol, she was reluctant to use them. She wanted to capture the Yomdera woman alive, as well as the drone combat unit. She was not sure if the unit had a dedicated AI core or was being piloted, or even controlled remotely. Following the drone into the parking lot, she lost sight of it, as it had been moving quite quickly and had a head start of a sort. Drawing out her combat knife and scanning the surrounding area with her prosthetic eye, running it through all manner of spectra as she did so, she kept low to the ground as she moved. With so many beings that could still be around, as well as the sheer penetration power even while on a low setting, Selena was uncomfortable using her gauze pistol. "The fuck are you?" Selena said quietly to herself as she stalked with confidence. Had it not been for her semi-regular training with Doom, she would have been quite nervous, perhaps even panicking. Now she strode along, using the various parked vehicles as cover, looking for a quarry. Hearing more gunshots from the other side of the hotel, she had to put her trust and faith in Ornok and Nuo. Anything else would leave her too distracted from her own fight. Focused and alert, she heard the unmistakable sound of a heavy energy weapon cycling up, only to be peppered with pulse pistol fire as her attention was drawn away. While the shots stung and would leave heavy bruises, they lacked the power to do any lasting harm to her. Hissing from pain, and looking to see where the shots had come from, she had to deploy her riot shield quickly, as tracer lighting enveloped her. The small but powerful shield array system hummed loudly and chewed through power as though it were candy. Cherenkov radiation illuminated brightly from her energy shield, as it defended her from the charged particle beam. "Gotcha!" Selena said, angry to herself, pulling out her gauze pistol. Her prosthetic eye cycling into the ultraviolet spectrum, showing quite clearly where the charged particles were coming from. Originally against using the weapon so close to a popular and populated area, that notion went out the window in flames, since her assailants were now using military-grade particle weapons on her. Thumbing the analog toggle switches on her gauze pistol by muscle memory, she fired 2 shots in rapid succession. The high-velocity rounds pierced through a vehicle and hit their mark, causing the heavy particle weapon to explode in a fiery blast of deafening noise. She was certain the drone was still functioning, but hoping it had to go through a quick-start reboot sequence. Shutting off her riot shield and letting it vent waste heat, she surged on. Despite being active for mere moments, it was already at a critical failure level and could not be used, lest she risk catastrophic damage to her arm. There were more gunshots on the other side of the hotel. Putting the thought of her friends aside again, Selena held out her combat knife and gauze pistol, as she had been taught by Tanaka. He had drilled her to the bone, then drilled her some more, only stopping each session when the external power cells for her prosthetic systems ran dry. She was never more grateful to that thrice-damned Oni than she was now. Seeing movement, she shouted out, "Surrender! Just come out with your hands up. You're outgunned and outclassed." Okay, Wexler shouted. "I'm coming out." She got out from behind an imported Terran vehicle, her hands in the air, her pulse pistol dangling off her finger by the trigger guard, as she said again, "Just don't shoot me." Selena nodded and moved slowly, keeping her wits about her in case the drone managed to get itself back online. Her pistol still trained on the woman in front of her. Seeing the slightly damaged lenses on Wexler's face turn black, and hearing some kind of heavy and metallic object hit the ground between the two of them, Selena scrunched up her eye closed, and her prosthetic one adjusted itself just in time to block out most of the flashbang. Semi-blind, as the light was strong enough to pierce her eyelid and force a reset of her prosthetic eye, she floundered a bit. Point-blank pulse pistol fire rained down on her. Staggering for cover from the weapon, she heard the heavily damaged drone as well as an unknown hovercar fly towards her. Finding respite from behind a parked vehicle, she heard a sliding door open and a pulse weapon spool up power, then felt hundreds of pulse shots rain down on the car she was hiding behind. The military-grade heavy repeating pulse cannon would tear even her to pieces. As her vision came back, and her eye finally finished its rebooting sequence, she heard gunshots once more. They were from this side of the hotel. The heavy pulse cannon's aim suddenly veered off to the left and upwards, missing anything of actual value before suddenly turning off. Exploiting the opportunity, she left the crumpled up mess of the hovercar she had been using for cover. The heavy cannon was operated from the inside on some kind of moving mechanisms, similar to old gunner turrets on helicopters she had seen in various war museums. The operator lay slack in the seat, felled by the obvious headshot. The hovercar, more of a converted, armoured and heavily modified moving van, began to speed away as the sliding door closed automatically. Selena entered the Gauss pistol of its ammunition. At the close range and the size of the vehicle, it was impossible to miss. The Krar's energy shield system shattered under the combined onslaught from her Gauss pistol and that of the mystery helper, but failed to pierce the armor. Looking around for more threats, which she did not find, she saw Ornok walking towards her. He was rubbing his shoulder and had a Terran High rifle slung over the other shoulder. She knew it was an older model, one of the last made that used chemical propellant. "Hell of a shot there," Selena said, walking to her bodyguard. "Been practicing," was his simple reply. "It shows," Selena said with a bit of a sigh. "Where's Nuo? Is he hurt?" Memories of Rutak and Gerd coming to the forefront of her mind. "Just a little beat up. He's fine," Ornok said, then grinned. "We got you a surprise. Come on." As Ornok led her into the hotel, Selena could see how roughed up he was. The 3 shield bands he had were fried, and he was covered in multitudes of cuts and gashes. He was missing a lot of scales. "You look like shit." "I feel like shit." Finally, after cutting through the hotel to the back side of it, where the pool and other decorative structures were, they made it. Endymion was on the floor, laying down on his stomach with all 4 of his hands tied out to his ankles behind his back, and held together with maglocks. Even a strong species such as his could not break out of that kind of hold. Nuo was next to the Endymion, applying some kind of biofoam to himself. Nuo was far more injured than Ornok, but he had a shit-eating grin on his face. "Told you we had a surprise," Ornok said. "Took everything we had, a fuck ton of luck and a deal with a demon, but we bagged a live one." "I haven't had a claw-to-claw fight like that in cycles," Nuo said with a dumb smile. "Felt good." "Enforcement should be here soon. Not sure why we haven't heard anything yet," Selena said. "Bag dumbass here in the trunk. Stun him a few times too. I'll get my stuff and we can leave. I want this fucker questioned, and I know just the man to do it." Sirens were finally heard in the distance.